Desmos activities, the online activities that are totally interactive and the whole library of them. He's going to walk us through where they are, how to find them, how to make an account, how to send them to students. And this is really exciting because these are great activities that can be used for enrichment. They can be used for review. And I'm really thankful that Adam was willing to come over here and tell you all about all these great activities. So I'm going to be off the screen. I'll jump in. If you have any questions, you can type them there. And I'll be, if I have to jump in once in a while, I will to tell Adam about the questions if he misses them, because you know, can't do everything at once. And then and if you have any questions, you can type them in and we'll get them answered by the end. All right. Thank you so much, Adam. And I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, well, thanks, Shana. I'm really excited to be here and with you at the Visual Math community. So thank you for joining us tonight. You know, our goal tonight, like Shana said, is to really unpack further into Desmos activities and see definitely during this unique time how they might fit some of your goals with your students, and hopefully leave this 1 hour webinar with just the tools to know what to do next to move forward with that. And that's the goal tonight. This is meant to be an interactive webinar. So definitely tonight, it's not going to be me talking the whole time. I'm going to have you trying some activities as students and doing some things as teachers as well. So be prepared for that and be ready. So it will be best if you're on a laptop or a device that has a bigger screen rather than a phone if you want to be in there. But yeah, some people saying hello there. Feel free to say hello in the chat to jump in there. Also, while we're waiting for people to kind of jump in with us, I just want to say that all of the slides tonight will be available to you. And there's a link right there on the screen that you can feel free to use. And I think I can even throw that in the chat box there. We'll see if this works. All right, so I can grab that and put it over here. I'll let Shana do that on the way through. But all right, well, one thing about me, and then we'll get started. Just so you know what my background is, I taught high school math for 10 years in the middle of Illinois. And then the past 10 years, I've been working at the University of Illinois with pre-service teachers and in-service teachers, just looking at meaningful math instruction across K-12. And several years ago, had a chance to kind of partner along with Desmos as they were growing to get trained to be a facilitator, to work with teachers, work with schools, and thinking about how to use all that Desmos offers, again, to engage students in meaningful math and meaningful math instruction. So before we start, I do want to just take a moment and just recognize, again, the unique time we're in. And I know we're focused tonight on content and Desmos and thinking about it, but also just to give a nod again to the notion that these are unique times. And I think both for ourselves and for students, these words here mean a lot to us as teachers these days, thinking how we can apply some notions of grace and flexibility and care and empathy, again, both for our students, also for ourselves, and to give ourselves that same grace and care for ourselves and be flexible ourselves. You know, we're going to doing the best we can, and hopefully this tool may be one that, again, can help you in your efforts to do that, but let's not forget these. And along with that, before we officially start, I just want to say thank you for being an educator, whether you are in service right now or a home educator. I think one thing about COVID-19 that I see across social media is that people are returning to a notion of realizing how hard teaching is and being thankful for the work that teachers do every day and realizing the commitment of so many teachers who are just working flexible to try and make distance learning work for kids because they care about them. And so thank you. If you haven't been thanked lately, thank you for the work you've been doing and are doing. Education matters, being a teacher matters, so thank you for your time. So here's our goal for today's webinar. Number one, I'm going to make the assumption that we have a lot of new people with us today. So whether you're new or used Desmos before, I'm going to be talking as if it's a new tool for those who haven't, but I do think everyone, no matter your level, will get some things out of the webinar here as we go through. And so we wanted to overview those and have you try a few from a student perspective. Definitely want to talk about finding and then how to implement those Desmos activities with your students. As a teacher, how do I get that information? How do I give feedback and use that for formative learning with my students? And then for one important thing we'll cover a little bit is how to edit activities. Sometimes teachers find some and realize, I like it, but I just want to change it a little bit. And I want to make sure you know how to do that before we're done with our hour today. So just setting a few norms here. Again, I want your questions, and you can use the chat box as you go through. The one thing is, I do know, because I'm balancing a lot of things on my screen, even right now, the chat box is really small, and I have a hard time seeing it. So do ask the questions there. What I'll do is stop occasionally, and Shayna can jump on and help me catch some of the things that I'm missing or can't see as we go through. But please give me your questions. Shayna will moderate that. And then one thing today is, notice you as the participant are going to have to manage going back and forth from tabs and screens several times, because right now you're probably watching this through Facebook Live, which is great. But in a moment, I'm going to have you open up a new tab and be a student on Desmos. And then sometimes I might say, hey, come back to the Facebook Live page, and back and forth. So just know we're going to be doing that. And also know, just don't close the Facebook Live page right on the tab there. Keep that open, and maybe have some other tabs open so you can navigate back and forth as you go. And you may need to, again, make your screen full screen sometimes to see the Facebook Live my screen better, and minimize it and go back and forth. I'll try and give some time here to go through. All right, well, before we jump into activities, I always think it's important to kind of get that mile-high view. Like, for those who don't even know what Desmos is, let me give you a mile-high view of what we're talking about, and then we'll jump into the aspect of Desmos with activities. So first of all, the homepage is here, www.desmos.com. You don't need to go there yet. Let me just show you a few things here. But if you were to, this is the homepage at desmos.com. And many people, when they think of Desmos, the first thing they think is of the graphing calculator, which is an amazing feature. And that's the bright red button up top here. And we're not going to do this today, but many people, when they think of Desmos, this is what they think about. There's a very interactive, colorful, very powerful graphing calculator, and that can be a wonderful tool. Desmos also, on the bottom left of the homepage, has a for-function and a scientific calculator. Again, these are very friendly, free, interactive calculators. There's also apps for all of these on phones to go through. Not our focus today, but again, Desmos has an entire calculator side. But then in the middle of the home screen down here, there's a button that says Classroom Activities, and that's our focus today. And this is what a lot of teachers are using a lot these days and being excited about as well with their possibility. And if I click on Classroom Activities, it opens another side of Desmos called teacher.desmos.com. And here, I can even scroll down. You can see that each of these things on the screen represent a pre-made activity, and there are hundreds here and many more on the web, where we could type in, a topic like fractions. And when I type that in, it's going to suggest several activities that have fractions as part of it. And for example, here's a newer one called Des Farm. I might click on it as a teacher, and it's showing me that there are, looks like about 11 screens in this activity. And, oh, there's a student preview button. So as a teacher, I could click the student preview button, and I could try this out, and you'll see some slides different. Every activity is different. Every activity has some different tastes, but this one is about, splitting a garden up, a farm up in different parts, dealing with some fractions, and I'm going to write in some part-whole ratios of the plants here, and I could go through. And basically, just give you an overview, is the teachers, you can use this and send a code to your students, whether synchronously or asynchronously. Timing doesn't matter. And they will do it, and you will get all the information into your dashboard to use that, to be able to formally assess students. And that's what we're talking about today, is finding these activities, knowing how to use them, adapt them, and to go forward. So that's the mile-high view. So with that, let's do a short icebreaker activity and find out who's with us today, and get a chance to taste just a little bit of being a student in one of these activities. And so we're going to do that. The first thing that's important is when you or your students start an activity, you always have to sign in. And as you can see on the screen here, they're always going to be given 3 choices. One of them is continue without signing in. Students don't have to have an account. This is all free, by the way. No one needs to pay for anything. They can continue without signing in, and whatever name they type in is what you will see. And that can be good if you don't need to worry about, anyone having any sign-in stuff, but obviously they could type in any name they want and you won't really know who it is. Now, the main option teachers like to use a lot is sign in with Google. As they sign in with Google, their Google Gmail, wherever they have, is linked to their account. They still will get to type in their name, which is good, but you will be able to see which email is linked to which name, so you have a little bit of accountability. But also, a very important thing, if they sign in with their Google account, that means if they stop the activity and come back the next day, they can continue right where they left off and continue the activity. If they signed in without if they did continue without signing in, they're going to have to basically just restart the activity or go to the slide they left off at. So usually it's best practice to do sign in with Google, and that's what the best practice typically is if you're able to, your students are able to. So let's go back here. What it looks like as a teacher, I'll just show you from my screen here, here's an activity called Visual Math Icebreaker for us today that I've created. And so as a teacher, if I find what I like, I can click on it and I can preview it. And when I'm ready to use it, this is how quickly. So Julie, by the way, this is teacher.desmos.com, and I'll walk you through that later. I saw your chat pop up there. This is teacher.desmos.com. But so here is all I would do. If this is what I want, I hit this green button that says Create Class Code. And it just created a new 6-digit code on the left side there. Interesting. Well, let me show you something. Basically, what I opened here is the gateway to get my students in. And this is what I would like you to do, is every time a student starts an activity, one way to do that is for them to go to student.desmos.com, easy to remember, and to type in this code, 6723FD. You'll see there's a space in the middle. They don't have to type in the space. Desmos does that because chunks of 3 are easier to remember. And so right now, if you can go to student.desmos.com and type in 6723FD, and maybe Shayna, if you could put that in the chat. If you can put that in the chat for 672, there we go, right there. And so right now, I'll leave that in the chat box. And again, this is one way to have students jump in. They have that code and go to student.desmos.com. And I'll give you a minute here to jump in and do that. I see that, for example, some names are popping on my screen as you're able to do that. I see, for example, Sue M just logged in, and Sarah just logged in, and Nancy and Lori and Kay just logged in, which is great. Welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Yeah, I see. Welcome Danielle. Welcome Bethany. And what's going to happen now is I just want you to get a taste of being a student on a Desmos activity. And once you log in, there's going to be a series of screens that's just going to have you do a few welcome icebreaker things and do a short math question or two as it goes in. And while you're doing that, I'll answer a question or two I see in the chat. And so just to reiterate, if you just joined us in the chat, what you want to do now is go to student.desmos.com and type in the code that Shayna put in the chat box, 6723FD. And I see that Diane, you asked a question, if students create Desmos accounts, does it hold place in their work? Yes, it does. So that was a third option I didn't address, Diane, thank you. Students can go in, there's 3 options, right? One is just to go in without signing in. One is to sign in through Google. And the other is a Desmos account, which students create a free Desmos account. And yes, that will hold their place in their work. So if they don't have a Gmail account, that's another great option. And it'll be linked to their email as well in some way, so you can track them a little bit better there. All right, great. So right now, good. I see that we have, a lot of people. Right now we have 49 students that are with us on Visual Math today. Welcome all 49 of you. And many of you have started to work through the screens here. And I know you're on your screen, so you can't see mine right now, most likely, depending on your screen. So I'll show this more later. But just as you're working through it, just know that I'm looking at all of you right now. On my dashboard, I can see, for example, that now we have 57 students, which is great. Welcome all of you in. 59 students. Great. Awesome. I see you're getting in. And I can see what screen you're on. I can see what you're doing in real time. I can pull up each of your work. In fact, I can even leave feedback on some of your screens. And I'll show this later. Right now, worry about just your screen right now. You're probably just hearing my voice, depending on what you're talking about. But I'm just going to go in. And for example, I'm looking at Sarah right now, and I'm going to give Sarah some feedback. Sarah was born in Maryland. Maryland. I'm going to write Maryland. Great, in Salisbury. I'm going to write her a question. How close to the ocean were you? Or just some feedback here that I've actually visited there this summer. I visited there this summer. And I actually just sent her some feedback. And Sarah, if you're out, I think it's Sarah P, just so you know, on your screen, you probably should have seen a little bit of a note pop up on the top of your screen, like a little green icon. And it tells you I left a note for you on that screen, which is a very new feature in Desmos, which is really cool. And that's actually, teachers have been wanting that feature for a long time. And I'll show you when we're back on the same screen. I'll be showing you how to do that. But again, I'm looking through here. I see that now we're up to 63 students. And if you're just joining us, again, Shayna in the chat put in where you should be right now. So if you just joined us, we're testing out an activity from just a sample short activity I put together for us today. And people who are with us are at student.desmos.com. And the code there is in the chat as well, 6723FD. Now, the great thing about Desmos dashboard is there's so many options that I have to use, which I'll show you after I let you get a little further here to go through. But I have options I can make all of you on the same screen at the same time. I can, again, look at all of your answers. I can try and, in certain screens, I can see if your answers are correct or not. I can use these answers to run discussions later or just performative assessment to think of next choices. I can also see how many students are on each screen. Like right now, I see that there's 7 students on screen 1, 4 students on screen 2, 12 on screen 3, and most of you are on screen 4. Right now, I see 36 people who are playing around with the open middle problem on screen 4. And I'm just going to pull one up here. I'm just going to take a look. I'm going to click on screen 4 myself and take a look at some of the responses here coming in. Interesting. Yeah. So I can take a look at some responses coming in here. And I'm going to go back to my summary tab for a second. And I can even take a look at what's happening in real time here. Like not to freak you out, Kay, but right now I'm looking at your screen and can see, some of the tiles are dragging around as you're thinking about how to get this closest to 1 and to see what you're doing there as you go through. And you may have noticed, by the way, a newer feature in Desmos is if when you were on maybe screen 4 or any screen, there's a little scientific calculator on the top, little icon. So that's a newer feature as well, that you can click that scientific calculator. And if you were wanting to, this can be enabled or disabled when you do an activity. Right now I have it enabled. So you can see that option there to go through. And I can take a look at some different people with their screens to see some values here people are playing with and going through. Good. So a lot of values there. Good. Awesome. Yeah, so good. So some of you are saying it's nice to see it from a student's perspective, and that's good. That's why I wanted to start today, because you have to know what it feels like to be a student a bit and just to go through the screens. And again, I can, again, with each of you, I could send feedback and send you a note as well to go through. So I'm gonna give about 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna come back together here, but just to go through. And by the way, now we're up to 65 students, and I see that Danielle, looks like you are nearing the end there and are on screen 7, doing a little drawing here. Good, go through there and taking a look at some of the different screens. I can see that Bridget just successfully completed the card sort on screen 5 and can pull up some different screens here to take a look at some of the work. And don't worry about having to complete every screen. Right now, you're just getting a taste, which is totally fine. So it's, I put together a few screens just to see some different options. And there's many options. This is not holistic to see them all. But tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and use a powerful button right now called the pause button. And on your screen, all of you should have noticed you can't do anything. It says paused, because that's the power of the pause button. Because as a teacher, if I want everyone to come back and have a discussion, the pause button allows me to do that. Or if you were doing this asynchronously and I wanted to have an end time, like maybe you said students need to get it done by 7 o'clock, I could use the pause button to just, if they go in, they're not gonna be able to do anything anymore after 7 o'clock. So right now, can you go back to my screen? Yes, I paused your screen, Raquel. There is some applications for 3rd graders, Davida. I would say that the sweet spot here is probably 5th grade and up, but I could help you find some good things for 3rd graders third grade scholars as well. Yes, everyone's paused right now. So can you go back to my screen? Everyone head back to my screen on Facebook Live so you can see that together. And let me show you a little bit about what's happening here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the anonymize button on the top left. And this is just because in case some of you typed in your full name and didn't want it shown, I hit the anonymize button, and this takes all of your names and replaces it with the names of mathematicians, which can be useful if we want to have students not worry about their names showing up when we're looking at students' work. And you know which mathematician you are. If you went back to your student screen you were using, in the top right corner, it will tell you who you are in the top right. But let me take a look at what we see here. So this is the dashboard. Welcome to the dashboard. And here is the power. First of all, in the dashboard introduction, on the top right, you can see there's 4 options: snapshots, summary, teacher, and student. And right now, this is called the summary page we're looking at. I can see this here. And here I can see the whole class and see, again, how many students are on each slide at the top and what people are doing. Let's take a look at some of the screens. If I click screen 1 on mine here, I can take a look at all of your responses in one place and take a look at some of the options that people said. One interesting thing is I can hit this overlay button, which overlays all of you in one graph. Look at that. Well, hey, that's kind of nice. I'm so glad that most of you are feeling positive today. That's encouraging. I know this is a difficult time, but as educators, hey, that's great that you're trying to keep that positive mindset. Keep that up. And then obviously from energetic to tired may have depended on our day-to-day, so hang in there. That's good. And again, I can see all of your responses over here as well as far as some of the things people are doing. So screen 2, I asked you to move that dot to where you were. And again, the overlay feature works nice here. I can see that we're definitely clustered a little more on the East Coast where this group has formed. But look, we're spread across the country and we have people all over the place. And we have some people here up top that are from some other countries as well. I want to scroll through and take a look here and see if I can find a couple as we go through. But it looks like we have people from Guelph, Ontario, which is great. The Ukraine, welcome. That is great. London, that is awesome. Super excited that you're here with us. Just get the idea again that as we look at this, we can take a look at each screen. Here was the screen that showed all of your use of Desmos. So again, a lot of you are not yet. Love your growth mindset, but we're scattered all over here. Danielle, your mathematician name is back on the student screen where you were doing the activity. In the top right, it replaced your name in the top right with a mathematician name, and that's how you go through. By the way, I got here to see this work just by clicking the little icons on the top of my screen. And so, for example, on screen 4, if I click screen 4, I can take a look at each person's answers. We can take a look at some of the different numbers that came in and to go through as well. So this is just an example of the dashboard here, looking through. And this is called teacher mode going through. So we have going through. So let's take a look a little more at what we can do with this and learn a little bit more together with the time we have. So what I'd like to do here is that was one, just getting a taste there to go through. But let me give you another little experience as a student and just to see what this looks like and how this goes in. So we're going to try to taste another example or two of an activity. And oh, top left, thank you. It's on the top left. I'm going to be a teacher and have you be the students. And like before, you're going to sign in and we're going to do a couple of things together. And then we'll talk about the teacher side after that, being a teacher. So let's go. What I'm going to do now is, again, just to go back to this for a second, is I'm going to go back to, this is the page that all the teacher stuff lives, teacher.desmos.com. And maybe Shana, if you want to put that in the chat there, you don't need to go there right now, but you will in a bit. This is where I go as a teacher. And basically here, by the way, one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unpause the Icebreaker if people come in late and wanted to try it. So I'm going back to the history tab on my left side, which keeps a history of everything I've done. And I'm clicking on Visual Icebreaker. And all I'm doing now is I'm going to unpause it. So if people wanted to look at it, they can. But going back to what I was doing is on teacher.desmos.com. Let's suppose I was looking for something with functions here to go through and to take a look. When I type in function, there's lots and lots of activities here that have function in the title, and it may take a little bit of time to explore and find the ones that look like for you. But here's one that catches my eye: turtle crossing. So if I was a teacher, I could read it and say, that looks interesting. And again, here, if I don't know what it is, and you won't know what it is, you can click the student preview button. And this is where you're just trying it out as a student. And if I'm a teacher, I'm just trying to be like you right now, and maybe I'm trying things out, and I realize, oh, I'm sketching a graph, and the turtle, oh, cool, the turtle's going to climb along the graph, kind of determines the turtle's movement. Oh, cool. And oh, they're going to have to read a graph and interpret a graph. Oh, they're going to actually get to watch their graph, interpret their graph. And you might say, hey, this is perfect. This is the one I want to do. So again, all you would do, I'll do it right now, is I hit create class code, and it just made a new 6-digit code for me. And I can do this a week in advance, a day in advance, a minute in advance, and that's fine. I'm going to click that. And when I click that new code it made, it opens this up. And this is where, if you can do this again with me, but I'm going to do one thing first. I'm actually going to pace everybody on screen 1. Right now in the top left of my screen, I know it's a little hard to see my cursor, it's so small. There are 3 tools: anonymize, pacing, and pause. I hit the pacing button, and I'm going to restrict everyone to screen 1. That way I know that everyone can't move on until we're there. But right now, if you can do this, if you can go to student.desmos.com, like we did before, and type in this code, RX67VY, that is going to be the code I just generated just a minute ago. And we're going to try a little bit of something together to taste a different activity, and just to see from the teacher side some things that I could do and how I could use that a little bit, and to go a little deeper in the dashboard. So I see Danielle just logged in. Now, one nice thing here is on my screen, you may not be able to see it right now depending on what you're looking at, but it also gives me a link, a pre-populated code link I can share directly with my students. So if you have an LMS for your students and don't want to say, go here and type in the code, you can give a direct link to the activity. And it's right here. For example, Shayna, for some reason, I can't type in the chat on my screen right now, but what I can do is I can email you this so you could put it in the chat, Shayna. So I'm just emailing you the pre-populated code. And this is a nice way that if you just want to send your students one link or to embed it in your page, you can do that, which is awesome, to do that. So right now, again, we're not going to take quite as long on this one, but if you can go to student.desmos.com and type in this code, RX67VY, or Shayna just put in the pre-populated code into the chat box. Again, you can copy and paste that. It will take you to the activity just for us. Great. And while you're doing that, some questions I get with this. Yeah, so Danielle says she just posts the link on her classroom. Yeah, if you have this pre-populated link, that saves a step, right? So if you take this code and just give it to your students directly or embed it somewhere, I agree, Danielle, that makes it a little bit easier to go through. And some people ask me when they're starting off here, they say, Adam, I have 3 different 8th grade classes. Should I make a new code for each class? Well, really, it's up to you. Usually, yes, because then you can keep your 3 classes separate, and be able to just manage each class individually, and it doesn't get overwhelming in one dashboard. But if you wanted to put them all in one, you're welcome to, but there's no limit to codes. You can make 100 of these codes and have 100 classes, and that's fine. And there is no limit really to the number of students in a class. I want to say that the founder of Desmos said, I think it's set at like 800 or 900 or something. Michelle, who uses this, says, yes, she likes it for each class, which is a good way to go. Good. So right now, what you're doing is you are looking at an activity that involves turtle crossing. And right now I have you paste. You're stuck on screen 1 because I wanted to take a moment just to show you how I can kind of control the pacing of the activity. If you see my screen, basically, I have an orange box set around screen 1, and that's because I hit the pacing button on the far right. Now, again, on my dashboard in the top right, I have a teacher button and a student button. What these are is the student button allows me to show what a student sees. This is what a student sees. So if I wanted to do a demonstration with the class, or if I wanted to, to be able to model something on the right, we can show that there. In fact, right now, if I wanted to pause everyone and have you come back, I could have you do that. With this activity, let's just pretend though I wanted to go on to the next screens. Just want to show here what I can do is in the pacing, there's a little plus sign in the orange part by my pacing, and by hitting the plus icon, I can expand you out to screens 2 through 5. And if you are synchronous, it's a way of controlling the flow of the class to go through. And right now, for instance, you now have access to a little arrow just appeared on the top of your screen, and you now can go to screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, and so on, and to kind of work your way through. Yeah, so we're realizing that this distance from water over time graph definitely correlates to the turtle's movement, and trying to answer some questions about that as we go through. And this is a really interactive activity, which is really nice to have students see the relationship in action, and also to learn about functions. You may have realized in this one that if we have a continuous graph that is a function, only one turtle appears. But if you do some funky things, like on my screen, just for the sake of drawing in, if I tried to see what happened if I tried to make a loop for my turtle and I press play, as that turtle crawls through the loop, it forms several turtles, because that's what the graph says. The graph says at a single time, the turtle's in several places at once. And again, it enables some really good math discussion along the way. So again, some of you are working through some of the screens there. And again, I can pull up those screens and take a look at some of the responses. And that's what I want to do here for time. I know it wasn't a lot of time to taste it, but I want to go ahead and I encourage you here to I'm going to pause you at this moment, and I want to encourage you to come back to my screen. So come back to the Facebook screen for a second, and basically to talk through a little bit of my dashboard again. So on my dashboard, again, this is the summary page. And again, to reiterate, when you are in control of your own dashboard, how I'm doing some of these things at the top left of the dashboard, there are 3 circles: anonymize, which I just did again. I turned you all to mathematicians. Pacing, which controls the orange around the slides on the top. So for example, right now, I hit that button and I hit stop pacing, and there's no more orange. If I hit the pacing button, it can let me choose a screen to make everybody go to. Like right now, I just sent everybody to screen 4. I can also set a range of screens to go through. And I can turn off the pacing, by hitting that button again. And then, of course, the pause button is right there in the top left. And again, there's lots of ways to manage the dashboard, but again, one way to do it is in the top right by the teacher button in the 4 in the top right. Teacher means things teachers want to see. So when I click teacher, I can click any screen up top, and it shows me the work the students were doing there. And I can take a look at what people were saying to go through. I can click on their responses as well and make it nice and large to take a look at their screen. And another really cool option that we can do, this is a little bit more advanced, but it's not much, is if you notice by every student work, there's always this camera icon. If I wanted to have a discussion where we compare and contrast, select and sequence student work, I could click on a couple of these that I think are really good to compare and contrast, and I took pictures of them. Where'd they go? Well, they went to my snapshot tab. Again, in the top right of my screen, at the top, you can see the one on the far left is snapshots. When I click on that, everything I took a picture of is now in my snapshot screen. I can actually drag these over if I want, 1 of them or 4 of them. And now this is in a slide, and just want to show the cool aspects of snapshots here is when I hit present, look at this. Here, we took all 4 students' work and I selected them, and Now we can try and connect them and discuss. We could talk about as a class some of the things we like about responses, how some could be improved. And this feature of snapshots is a powerful way to have class discussions and to enact the 5 math discussion practices that we're alluding to here. So just want to show that snapshots, that's what that means. And you can do that with any student work. And you always go to snapshots to see it. Now, as well, if I were to click on any of the screens up top, for example, like screen, so I'm going to go to screen 2 for a second. And again, any of these students I can click on and opens up their screen. Now, one of the newest features of Desmos is leaving feedback for students. So one of our students here was Felix Klein. And to leave feedback, I'll show you how, because you do have to turn on the feature in your teacher account. I'll show you how to do that. But like with Felix, he said the turtle traveled 2 feet in 2 seconds, then he rested for 2 seconds. And it looks like he stopped there. So maybe I'll send a little feedback note. I'm pushing the little, looks like a chat icon on the top of my screen, and it opened up this neat feedback tab. And I could say, Felix, what happened after he rested? And I can hit send. And basically there, Felix then, when he is logged in, he'll have that same little icon on top of his screen that will appear, a little red dot will appear by it telling him he has a message from me. And when he clicks on it, it will tell him what screen the message is on. And you can leave messages on multiple screens for students, and they will see it pop up on any screen. And when they click it, it will show them what to do. And this is a new way of using feedback. Now, Felix at this point can't respond to me, but he knows to look at my feedback and use that to go through, which is very neat. Good question. Raquel asked, do they see the snapshot automatically? No, they don't, Raquel. When I took the snapshot, that's in my dashboard. I'll go back to that for a second. So when I am in my dashboard and I take a snapshot, these go to, again, in the top right of my dashboard, you can see it says snapshots up there. And then I have to choose which ones I want them to see. For example, I'm going to go, to this another screen where maybe I just want to compare. Oops, I got Jose twice there. I want to compare Diego and Jose. They only see this if we are synchronous. Let me make that clear. Like what you see on my screen now is basically on my screen. If we were synchronous, they would see that on my screen to go through. So that's what we're talking about. So that's not something they would see. The snapshots is only if we're synchronous and they're looking at my screen. So with your on the dashboard, again, a slew of information, a slew of ways to use that to go through. All right, so let's do this. It's important that you start seeing how to do this on the teacher side yourself. So we got a chance to taste a couple activities and see a little bit. The other thing I'll give a nod to, we're not going to do it for time's sake, but I do want to make a note that Desmos has another side of activity that's totally different called a polygraph. And I just want to let you know, if you see this, you might be confused, but these are awesome. Polygraph is based on the Desmos game Guess Who? And where students try and guess, like, hey, does your secret person have yellow hair, or does your student have red hair? And they answer yes or no questions. Desmos has a whole slew of activities called polygraphs that it pairs up 2 students in your class. This would be a synchronous activity. And basically Desmos would compare, or here Justin and Yasmin are paired together. One of them becomes the picker and one is the guesser. And the picker chooses a secret graph. And the guesser has to ask yes or no questions. And the picker, answers yes or no. And the guesser eliminates graphs little by little to get the right one. It's an excellent way to practice math vocabulary in an interesting context. And in your dashboard, you collect all of the questions. You can use it for discussion. And it's, again, an amazing tool here. And there is a little tutorial that shows students how to play. But that's what a polygraph is, which is a different, unique activity. All right, but let's get you as teachers geared up and ready to go. If this is new for you, the first thing you have to do is create a teacher account. And I do want you to do that now. So, and if you already have an account, why don't you go and open yours, make sure it's open. So at this point, let's go to teacher.desmos.com. All right, let's go to teacher.desmos.com. And in the top right, if you haven't had an account before, go ahead and click that green button, Create Account. And if you have signed in, go ahead and sign in with your account. So let me give you a moment to do that there. I see some people, I know we're not doing polygraphs today, but I see people in the chat box saying that they really like polygraphs. That's why I wanted to give it a nod. We don't have time to do it, but I know for a lot of teachers, it's very popular. But again, that would be a synchronous activity. You need students online at the same time to make that work. So right now I want to say, whether you are new and creating an account or you already have an account, I want to point your attention to turn on some new features in Desmos and to make sure that you can leave written feedback. Because that's a new feature, it's called a beta feature, and you have to turn that on to enable that for your account. And to do that, on my screen, you can see that basically, once you have your name signed into Desmos and you click on it, it brings some options about Learn Desmos or Desmos Labs or account settings. And one of those is Desmos Labs. And that's where you can go and turn on some beta features. So I'm going to show that on my account right now. And so I know you're balancing several screens. So on the top right, when I hit my name, I get Desmos Labs. And then I see there's features here. I have them turned on. I encourage you to turn them all on, but you can turn on marble slides. Computation layer is the coding that goes behind Desmos, a little more advanced. But it's good to have it turned on because then you can edit things that have computation layer in it. There's actually geometry side of Desmos you can enable. And then the key one there is written feedback. So I encourage you to turn those on. And while we're here, Desmos recently released a brand new feature for co-teachers. Did you know that? So if you co-teach with someone and want them to be able to see the student dashboard as well, here's how you do that. Under your name, in account settings, so under your name in account settings, there is a couple options. And one of them is manage co-teachers. And here you can put in the email address of a co-teacher. And then when you're in your dashboard, you will have an option to send them a link to that dashboard so they can see all the student work with you. And that is brand new, like as of a week ago. And Desmos did that just for people in this time and realizing it was really helpful for co-teachers. So here, if that applies to you, that's where you would get that in the account settings. And then when you're in a dashboard on the very top, you'll see a little share button that would share it with your co-teachers. But all right, well, now that you have an account, what do you do with your account? Well, let's talk about that. Well, the first thing is you have to know how to find Desmos activities, right? You have to be able to find the ones you want. So let's start with that. Let's start with finding them. So one thing you notice is that on the home page for Desmos, on the left side of your screen, there are featured collections. Collections are like folders for Desmos where they put lots of things together. And this can be a good place to start. On the left side, for example, there's a most popular collection on the top. There is down below a collection for conic sections, exponential functions, and so on down. I'm just going to click on one like modeling. So Desmos has put some collections together of some recommended activities for the topics that appear here. There's even a view all collection down here at the bottom that allows you to view all their collections. And they recently put together distance learning collections that they recommend some activities for classes that they think works well with distance learning. And so, again, I got here. There's a couple ways to get here, but on the left side of my teacher screen, teacher.desmos.com, I went to view all, and it pulled up all these collections here of activities. Now, you can also just search for individual activities. So up in the search bar, I could type in integers, right? And if I hit integers, I have 3 that came up that are ones I could look at here to go through. Now, obviously here, this is where I showed earlier, you can click on something, and to know what it is, you hit student preview, right? And that shows, I love this integer one, by the way. This is a really awesome one, adding integers. This is a great interactive one, very good activity. And again, you can try it. You just have to hit create class code like I did, and you are good to go. I mean, if I hit create class code, the most recent code it creates is up top. And when I click that code, again, it gives me a pre-populated link I can share with students, or again, that 6-digit code to have them type in to student.desmos.com. And by the way, on my screen with the dashboard here, you may notice that there's this little, if you can see in the top, there's a share with co-teacher button at the very top of my screen and next to the code. And that's where you would hit to share that with your co-teacher that you have done. All right, well, let me go back over here. The other thing I want to say, though, is that there are tons more activities on the web than you will find on teacher.desmos.com. The only ones you find on teacher.desmos.com are all high quality because Desmos has vetted them, they've helped create them, and that's a ongoing collection, new things released all the time. But teachers can create their own activities as well. Good question. I'm going to stop there. So Julie asked a question. She said, before you give the code, you have to show students the site so they can log in, right? And actually, Julie, I mean, technically, it's good to let them know what they're going to be doing, but technically, you don't need to show them anything because, if you sent them the code, it would just ask them to log in. And if they log in with their Google account, if you give them directions, they're ready to go. They don't need to actually log in anywhere specific. They would just do that as soon as you gave them the code when they went in. Now, if there's a first time doing it, obviously it'd be helpful for them to know what they're going to experience and you tell them some directions. And that depends if you're synchronous or asynchronous, how you might do that. But yeah. Danielle, I'll answer your editing question soon. Can we assign the class code in Google Classroom? I think you have to, yes, you have to create it in teacher.desmos.com, but then you can go and copy that and paste it into Google Classroom and they can just click it from there. And that saves a good step as where. Can the co-teacher mark the student work as well? Yes, I believe so. It's new enough that I haven't done that, but I believe so, but I can't be 100% sure. But anyway, I want to go back to this because if you're looking for other activities you're not finding, they may exist. So if you do a Google search, and let me just show you, for example, here's what I do. I go to Google and I just do something like Desmos activity plus volume of a cone. Maybe I didn't see any for volume of a cone, for instance. And when I click that, I just got a whole bunch of teacher.desmos.com links that are all at least partially about volume of a cone. Now, like anything, these are not vetted. Now, well, let me say some of these are the ones that already are on teacher.desmos.com, but other ones are ones that teachers have created that are out there on the web. And so these you have to vet, but I could click on it and, that's just a teacher guide. Click on that one. So let me look at a different one here. But here's one that I found on the web that is out there, made by Nick Corley, who's an amazing Desmos fellow, actually. Nick is amazing. So if you see his name on something, it's probably good. But this may or may not be on the teacher.desmos.com site, but I can still use it. But here's a really key tip. All right, so listen closely. Here's a really key tip. When you start using Desmos activities, you may think, how do I keep these organized? Like I found some I like, how do I organize them? Or if I found one on the web somewhere, how do I remember it's there? The answer to that question is collections. Collections is Desmos' way to organize things for you onto your screen. So again, on the left side of your teacher.desmos.com page, there's a spot that says collections. And when I hit collections, these are like folders that I can create. For example, if you teach 8th grade, 8th grade period, or just 8th grade math and 7th grade math or 6th grade math, you could make your own folders for each of those, your own collections for each of those folders by hitting new collection. And as you find activities you like, you can add it to that collection. Or maybe you have algebra, geometry folder, modeling folder. So Desmos has pre-made collections, but you can make your own collections. So for example, let me go back to that volume of a sphere one. Let's just suppose I found this on the web and I really like it. The way you add it to your collection is on the top right next to the teacher guide button, which is also helpful to know that several activities have suggested teacher guides, but there is a plus icon. That plus icon is so important. When you hit the plus icon, it opens up your collections, your folders, and you can choose where you want to keep this. So if I want to put this in my geometry collection, I hit collections, and then I hit save, and now that is in my geometry folder, and it's now in my teacher.desmos.com account. So you can build your own teacher.desmos.com account. As you add things you find on the web, that permanently becomes part of your account. And then when you search for it, you will always find it, and you can use that there. Michelle is asking, can you make collections inside of a collection? Kind of, Michelle. Let me show you what I believe. Again, so for example, let's say I was looking at geometry here. So on my screen, this is my geometry collection that I've just been using a little bit. Is in the top right of my geometry collection, there's that dot, dot, dot icon. And when I click on that dot, dot, dot icon, it says edit collection, share collection, or delete collection. So first, one option here, the share collection will allow me to get an email link that I could email to another teacher, and they could actually see my whole collection and add it into their collection. So we can share collections. But Michelle, under the edit collection, when I edit the collection, this looks a little different. You can add sections. So I know we're getting a bit advanced here, but I can add section. And maybe I want to put unit 1, just for example. And I hit enter. And unit 1 is now a section here that I can have to go through here. And maybe I can add another section, unit 2. And as I drag these sections around, I can move the activities underneath there. And let me show you what this looks like. I have to hit, in the top right, there's a publish button to save my work. But now when I go back to my geometry collections, Michelle, it says unit 1, and there's those 3 activities I had there, and then unit 2 and the 3 activities there. Very important. All right, so the collections are just so important. And I just can't stress that to build that up and to use that is so important. And you do that to go through. So that's how you can start looking and Googling to go through. Some things I want to mention here is, right now this isn't an issue because students are alone at home. So they will be 1 student to 1 device. But someday when you're back in your classrooms, I do want to make a notion that I believe that often many of these activities are best done with 2 students on 1 device because it ramps up the conversation between students as they're doing the activity to go through. And again, if you're in a classroom, you can display that dashboard during the activity for conversation, for pausing to go through. And again, I also want to think about pedagogy here, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. Just think about how you would launch the activity. I mean, students, before you just give them a code, help students know what it is they're about to do. Pique their interest. What's the main question we're exploring? While they're exploring, this is where you're going to gather that dashboard data where you could pause and have discussions if you want. And to summarize the activity, it's real important to think about at the end what we might do. If you're synchronous, you could pause the class, come together, pull up the key screens, discuss the answers, discuss strategies. That's great. If you are not synchronous, obviously it makes it a little harder right now, but I have seen some creative teachers actually doing some screencasts of their dashboard, doing a little self-video of themselves, just doing that same thing of recording their screen and talking through some of the key screens, trying to keep it, under 10 minutes and recording that. And then recording that, and through a technology like Edpuzzle is one example, actually sending it to their students so they can kind of be part of a post discussion through Edpuzzle. So just a thought there of going through. So good. So when we're here, let me show you a couple other things real quick that are important that people often ask me, when we do this. So for example, right now I'm back in my teacher screen and people say, okay, Adam, I did an asynchronous activity. I told my students to try and do this by Tuesday at 5, and now it's Tuesday at 5. What do I do? Well, one way to do it is what I use is I go back to the history link on the far left of the screen. On the far left of the screen by collections and custom, there's a history link. And when I click history, that opens up a history of everything you've ever opened in Desmos. I mean, every code that's ever been used by you in Desmos. So for example, if I wanted to go look at the data from our Icebreaker again, or from the turtle activity we started, it's right here. I can click on it and I can open up that Icebreaker and it's still right here. This data doesn't go away. It stays here. I can go back and use it later for a discussion next week, for a discussion the next day, to just do some formative assessment. That's all right here. And again, if it's asynchronous, what you might do at Tuesday at 5 is just hit that pause button if you want, because that means no one can do anything after 5. If you want a little accountability to get it done, that's right there. Also, while I'm here, I want to make a note to say that if you're here and some students typed in some names that you didn't know who they were, again, right now I have the anonymize feature on, but if I unanonymize it, like let's say someone typed in a name and I wasn't sure who it was, there is a ... icon next to each student name. And when I click on it, it tells me which email is connected to that account, if they signed in with their Google account or Desmos account. And there's also a hide student button here. And just a quick note, if you have students that, often in Desmos, students' answers are shared with other students. And if you don't want that to happen, you can actually hide a student here in the dashboard. That student is now at the very bottom of my student list. And basically, they're hidden students. They still do the activity, but their work won't be shown with all the other work to other students on the dashboard. And I can unhide the student as well to bring them back in. So again, just a little tip there of going through. So one question people ask me as well is, Adam, this is really neat. I'd like to get some practice though, like using the dashboard. How can I get practice without doing it live with my students or to go through? Here's another tip. So do what we just did, create a class code. So create a class code, then, have your dashboard open in one tab, and then go to a different browser. I find it works best, and be a student. Go to student.desmos.com, right? Type in the code. You could do it on a few tabs in the other browser, and then you're the students. And you can practice being a student, practice pausing yourself and pacing yourself, practice, what does it look like if I give feedback to myself? And it's how I learned in the beginning. And I just stress that's a great way to just learn. And I find it works best in different browsers. If you're in the same browser, you just got to make sure that you don't sign in you can't be a teacher and a student on the same Desmos account. So you have to make sure that you're just not doing that to go through. Good. So again, with distance learning, I think we talked about some of this, but it can work well, for synchronous activities where you've got your class together and, it's a good interactive thing to do while they're together. And again, then the pause and the pace makes sense. You can use the dashboard to discuss. Polygraphs work well. The written feedback you can do while it's live if you want. If it's asynchronous, again, I will say, not every activity in Desmos is self-checking. Desmos is not a quizzing tool. It's not a testing tool. It doesn't tell students they got 10 right. Typically, there's some great tools for that, like quizzes, if you like that type. That's important. That's a different kind of lesson and great. But Desmos is more of a conceptual tool, a discussion tool. And there are definitely some activities that I think would work well asynchronously because it does allow students to get feedback. It does allow them to, some activities are self-checking and we'll tell them if they're right. There's certain activities I just be careful with that may not work best asynchronously because if they don't know if they're doing things right, they could go through the whole activity without feedback on certain activities. So just got to choose carefully there to go through. All right, we talked about collections. The other thing I mentioned I wanted to hit, yes, you will get a copy of these slides, Sue, in just a moment, is what about editing? I know we're running near the end of our time here, but that's important because sometimes you find an activity and you're like, this is great, but it's too long. Or I just wanted to add a slide in the beginning that explains the goal of the activity, or I wanted to change the language on an activity. How do I edit it? So here is how you do that. Let me go back to, again, this is my teacher.desmos.com account. And let's pretend that I am looking at that volume of a sphere activity. All right. And I like it, but it's just too long. Maybe it went too far. Screens 10, 11, 12, and 13, I didn't even need. It was just too much. Here's how you can edit it and change that. So in the top right, a volume of a sphere, again, by the plus icon for the collections, there's 3 dots. And when I click on those 3 dots, I get 2 options. Share activity, which gives me a link that I can email to another teacher, or copy and edit. When I copy and edit, this opens up something we haven't seen before. This is behind the curtain of Desmos, right? This is where activities are created and edited and made. It kind of looks like, Google Slides or PowerPoint, and it is. On the left side, I see every screen in the activity going through. And in the middle, it looks a little different. In the middle is kind of the guts of the activity that I can play with and edit and add. But if I wanted to get rid of the screens 10, 11, and 12, here's how easy that is. I can come down and click on screen 10, and there's a dot, dot, dot icon on screen 10 on the left side of my screen. And when I click on it, it says, do I want to duplicate it or delete it? I'm going to delete it. And I didn't like this one either. I'm going to delete. I'm going to hit the 3-dot menu. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to hit delete this one. And though all those are gone, I also noticed, though, I wanted to change some of the wording on screen 2. I just wanted to change this and say something like blah, 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 you know, and just type in some extra words here, which I can do. And maybe I want to add a screen. Well, that's the green plus icon in the bottom left of my left screen, and it added a blank screen at position 3. Now, this takes some learning, so I'm not going to teach you this right now, but this is where you have to play a bit. But if you want to make a Desmos activity, you can add different types of things here and have to build your screen. But simple editing is easy. You know, creating is a little more advanced to play with, but that's how you go about doing that. Now, the last thing to do is, if you edit it, is to publish it. And so to do that, I would hit next. Danielle says, can you only edit it if it's in your collection? No, Danielle, I don't believe so. I believe anything that everything is editable, whether it's in your collection or not. There are some activities that are too complex to edit, and it will let you know you can't edit it. So Michelle says no. Well, yeah, okay. Well, we'll take a look at that. But when I get back here, the last step is to publish. The activity. And you might say, Adam, you just ruined Kyle's activity. Well, no, I didn't. Kyle's activity is still there. But this says, you know, it says copy of volume of a sphere, which I could have edited the title. But then it says by Kyle Ramstead, edited by you. And here it says edited with love by Adam Petzel. And so it does differentiate, and it gives Kyle credit, but it's edited. And now I give my students the code, and that is it. So I know that's a lot in an hour, and I'm going to stick around for questions here. And take a look. And so I'm going to give this last screen here, and I will stick around and answer questions for a while for those that have. I know I wasn't able to get to a lot of questions. But if you're curious about what to do next to continue your learning, one thing is Desmos has recently put up a page specifically to help teachers during this time of the pandemic. I don't know if, Shayna, if you're able to type that and put it in the chat box, learn.desmos.com/coronavirus. Here they have suggested activities for collections for distance learning. Here they have some other webinars like this one that are recorded. Here they have links to some other ways of learning. You know, there's another link that you can, if you want to learn more about Desmos, the main thing to go is learn.desmos.com. Like, everything is there. If you want to learn about the calculator or about geometry or about the activities, learn.desmos.com is the hub where you can go to get that. As far as the slides go, yes, you can have access to those as well, because everything in the slides, I feel like is go back and to help you remember what we did today is great. And I'll let Shayna put that in the chat box again. Basically, it's right there, though. It's bit.ly/Desmos_visualmath20. That is case sensitive, so be careful with that. I'll leave it up on the screen. That is case sensitive. And if you have to, I'm going to answer some questions here, but if you have to leave us, Desmos asks that I always ask people to fill out a very short, so less than a minute survey, which is on the bottom there. It's a bit.ly/PD Desmos. And if you're able to, I'd appreciate it to give a little feedback to Desmos about your experience tonight. Also, it helps me know some feedback and things to improve on and things to keep doing. It helps Desmos know some things as well that you are looking for. So Shayna, I'm gonna go back to you now for a second. I did a horrible job at stopping and asking you how things were going in the chat.
Worked really well that you were able to read them. I was pretty impressed, actually.
I was able to catch some on my screen, but I know I missed some, and I don't know if there's some things that you think would be good to address from your standpoint at this point. And people could still type in chat as well, but feel free right now. Feel free if you have a question for me that I skipped or you'd like to ask again. please feel free to put that into the chat. And if you're able to do that short survey link again in the chat box, I'd appreciate it just to take a minute and do that. So if you, I don't know if you, so Shana, one question is, was this recorded? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be, assuming everything goes well, it should be, when I click stop, it'll still be on the page. I could even download it and have it on YouTube or whatever, if that's something that's okay, or I think I could figure that out. So that way people can always come back to it and check it. And because there was a lot. I mean, this was awesome. I mean, this is so awesome. Yeah. The one,
go ahead.
Well, the one question that came across my mind is, when the kids are going to make an account, they can go in. I think you said Google Classroom is good. It's easy for them to make an account through Google. Is that what you said, through Google Classroom? Or
well, no, it's a good clarification.
Okay.
So when students sign into an activity,
okay,
there's two main. They just do that when you give them, every time they start an activity, they have to sign in. So every time you start a new activity and give them a code or a pre-populated link, they have to choose to sign in with their Google account, or to sign in with their Desmos account.
Okay.
I find that most teachers just use having students sign in with their Google account as the way to go.
Right.
Most students have one already, and that's the way to go.
Okay.
And that happens every time you start a new activity. They sign in with their Google account, and that begins.
Okay. So they don't use Google Classroom. It's like that's
nope. The Google Classroom.
Okay.
I think the question someone brought in with Google Classroom was like, how do I get my students to do the activity easily? And that's where teachers can copy and paste the pre-populated code.
Okay.
And paste that into their Google Classroom and just say, hey, students, today's activity is going to focus on these things, and I want you to focus on these, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Here's the link. You know?
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
That was, and then was there any, I feel like we definitely missed questions. If there's any, the slides, there's a few questions about the slides, and I pasted it in there a few times.
Yeah.
Get that again.
Just because I saw come in that I could look at here. So Joy asked about English language learners.
Oh, right.
And Joy, unfortunately, there isn't a preset tool or translation device at this time that works across all activities. I have started to see some activities popping up, in different languages like French and Spanish, but right now I don't know of a single place where they're being collected, and something I think Desmos is aware of and wants to work on, but there isn't a preset way to do. That's where, though, you as a teacher, I know it's more work for you, but you can edit the slides. If you find one you like, but you feel like maybe the vocabulary used needs to be modified or things, you can edit that and change it. But that means, you're responsible then for doing that, and saving your own there to go through. I saw someone else ask a question about the difference of publishing and saving a draft. And I think to answer that question, let me go back just here for a second. Like if I am on this again, I think what they're talking about is if I'm trying to edit an activity, like I go back to the ... menu. And again, now I can choose to edit this activity or copy it again and edit it again if I want another duplicate. But if I hit edit activity, I think what they were saying is if I change some things on here, let me just go through, and I hit next, it says save draft or publish.
Okay.
And good question. I think when I hit save draft, what it's doing is it's saved for me, but it hasn't been shared. Publishing definitely is ready to share with your students or ready to share with other people. So even with your students, like in order to do it with your students, you'd have to hit publish. So the save draft is if you're working on something but just don't want to worry about trying to make it live yet or anything, you would hit draft, and that comes up here. I believe that's correct. So I'd have to edit the draft, and before it becomes its own new activity, that's when I hit publish, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this doesn't change it, like for the person who made this. Okay, I didn't think so, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
And it's nice. You may, as I showed here, it's kind of fun. So this was someone named Kyle. Thank you, Kyle, if you ever see this for your activity to play with. But his activity is still there. In fact, in my account right now, his activity still lives in my account. I could find his original activity here, but this one says by Kyle Ramstead, edited by you, edited with love by Adam Petzel. And when I edit it, I can change the title as well. So if I had gone to edit this, back to this screen, in the top left, it allows me to say Adam's version or, whatever it is. And now when I hit publish, it's published and ready to use with students here, and it just changed the name of it to Atoms, blah, blah, blah. So that's how we do that. Shayna, someone's asking about the link for the slides.
Oh, yeah, let me grab
put
that.
in there again.
Too. Yep. So here's the. I think I accidentally had a different link grabbed in there, so I should be the right one. And then I'll do the Bitly survey. Yeah.
So Jill asks, where do you access the draft once it's saved? Well, Jill, two things there. So again, once you've published it and you want to find it, you can find it by searching for it in the toolbar. You can also always find it under the Custom tab. On the far left of your screen, I didn't mention this before, there's a Custom tab. And that Custom tab is specific to things that you have edited or you have created. And so everything that's here is anything that you've edited or created. This is where you go to one way to, there's many ways to find it, but one way to find things that you've done. But anything you've published, you can search for, you can add it to one of your collections. You can always find it again by searching for it. And by the way, if you're hanging on and are curious about creating new activities, this is where you go to do that as well. Is under the Custom tab in the top right, there's two little important things here, new polygraph and new activity. And this is where you would actually go to create your own brand new activity up here. And that's where that would be found.
And that was, you had said that was in the top.
So that's under the Custom tab. When you go to the Custom in the far left, then in the top right, we see new polygraph and new activity there. Yeah, to go through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So good. So someone asked about cell phone. Yeah, you know, it's usually not going to be best on a cell phone. There are some activities that are mobile friendly like that, but most it's just too small of a screen. So will it work? Yes. A lot of them will work on a cell phone, but it's difficult and it can go through. How can students create a marble slide? Great question, Michelle. I wish they could right now. I don't think students can create one. You can as a teacher. I'm trying to think if that's true. I mean, the only way for a student to do it is to really create their own teacher account and be a teacher and do it from there, which is a little complicated, right? I mean, to do that. So I don't think there's any way for a student to, I don't think there is. There's some really cool options in some activities for students doing a challenge creator, but I don't think it allows them to do a marble slide. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think there is a way. Jason says, after I add co-teacher, how do I share activities with them? Jason, great. Let me show you real quick. So Shayna, can you actually get rid of your screen just for a second so I can show Jason something? Yeah. So Jason, it's a good question. So Jason, to your question, again, just to go back real quick, is to add a co-teacher email, I would click on my name in the top right. I would go to account settings, and here I would manage co-teachers. So here, for example, I'm going to type in my Gmail address, adampetzel@gmail.com. And when I hit add, it's now listed as a co-teacher. So let me go back, Jason, and I'm going to go back to the icebreaker that we did today. And when I go back to history, this is any activity. So this is for any activity you're doing. I'm going to go back to, say I wanted to share the icebreaker with my co-teacher. And this can be real time. This can be a day later. It can be as the students are doing it. We can both be looking at it real time. Is on the very top, do you see next to the code? I know it's real small. On the very top, there is a little icon with a person with a plus sign next to it that says share with a co-teacher. And like, oh, there you go. I can make it a little bigger there. So, oops, let me go down a little bit. So right here on the top, this little icon here, I know it's small, but when I click on that, it says here, your co-teachers can view any dashboard you send them, and you can revoke their access at any time. And so here is basically, if I copy this, I can go ahead and share this email it to my co-teacher there to go through. So, so I guess what I would do here is I would go and email this to them, and when they log in with their account, like their Desmos account would be the same thing. They'd have access to it there as well. Like they would pull it up. We could, Oh, that's totally clear. But that's play with that. But that's where you go to do. This is new enough that, to be honest, I haven't actually sent it to a co-teacher yet. But I think, but there is where this came out last week, I believe. But this is how you do that right there. So hopefully that's enough, Jason, to get you going, to go through. Rebecca, can I easily dump kid out that uses an inappropriate name? A better option, Rebecca. So what you can do, Rebecca, is basically, well, can you dump them out? I don't think you can kick a student out, but what you can do is hide them. So for example, let's say that Dennis over here actually typed in something inappropriate, and I saw that in my dashboard. First, I would click on the 3 dots to the right of Dennis's name and make sure, see if they logged in with Google or something, I can see whose email it is and know who it is. Unfortunately, if they did it with, they have an option when they sign in, they have an option of continuing without signing in, and then I wouldn't really know who it is. But that's one way to know who it is. But then if I hit hide students, they're not kicked out of the class. They're still going to have to do the activity. I mean, they're still part of the class, but they're down here where it says student hidden. I could hide several students if I wanted. And like right now, there's 3 hidden students at the bottom. They still are going to do the activity, but their data is not going to show when I'm looking through the class responses. In case the students are with me, it's not going to show their data in my dashboard. It's also not going to share their responses with other students during the activity, which happens. So, so that's how you would hide them. But that would have to be done, each activity that's only for this activity. And I can unhide them too and welcome them back in if I would like. Won't the anonymize fix that? Yes. So good question. Good question. So here's the thing with that. The anonymize will fix, the name won't pop up as the inappropriate way, Karen. Thank you. The only thing I would say is if the student typed something inappropriate there, it's more likely they're going to type other inappropriate stuff during the activity. And when they do that, that also will be seen by other students at times in some activities. And so it's up to you, Karen. Anonymize will fix it from the name. But if you lose trust with that student's, being appropriate for the rest of the activity, that's where the hidden student will fix that. Is it possible to hide data for the entire class rather than individual? If I understand what you mean, well, as students go through the activity, they won't see this, right? Unless I share my screen with them. But some activities, when they put an answer in, other students will see their work. So for example, and that's an option you have to turn on or off in Desmos. So for example, so this is a little step up if I understand your question. Basically, you have to go into the editing screens. You have to choose the screen that you don't want them to see other students' responses and right. But as Michelle says, they don't see this unless you project it, unless you share your screen with them synchronously or in the classroom. So that's not a worry. And let's see. Can you set up co-teacher for only 1 student? No, you cannot at this point that I'm aware of. I think the co-teacher would have access to the full dashboard like this and would have to pick out their students from the full dashboard. Taiwana says, can you put up the slides again? So Taiwana, can you see that? Shauna could put the link in there again, but there it is right there. I think it's big enough maybe to see that now. So the slides are at bit.ly/Desmos_visual math20. And a key thing here is it is case sensitive with Desmos, with Bitly. So make sure that's there. And there's an underscore there as well that I used. So there we go. So if you are hanging around and didn't have a chance to do the short survey yet, it's also on the screen there. It'd be awesome for me if you're able to do that real quick. That's at the very bottom there, the bit.ly/PD Desmos. And hey, Shana, how are you?
I Facebook was not liking the Bitly. It kept rejecting it. So I'm going to see if this will work. Link.
Okay.
Slide. I'll just write slides. Put it into a. I don't know if that's going to show up or not. It might not just actually like links at all.
Gotcha.
So Yeah, I put it into a, all right. It looks like it's showing, no, I don't know if that's a, can you see it? I don't know if
I see it. It doesn't look
a
clickable,
Dropbox.
but I
Yeah.
do see it. Yeah,
Okay.
that
So
can be copied. It can be copied and pasted. And
yeah,
it's okay. If people weren't able to take the survey, it's okay. It's okay. But if people are sticking around, and sorry, I don't know if Bitly, I don't know if it needs the HTTPS in front for Facebook, or maybe it just doesn't like.
yeah, it was just rejecting it, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
I did type the PD1 wrong once, so maybe that was something. I put it,
gotcha. No
maybe,
worries.
I don't know. So yeah, but I will, let me just see if I can get into the live and post it. So let's see if I can get it to be, let's see if that's going to be clickable. All right, so there it is. The Dropbox link, it says link to PPT slides. It'll open a PDF with a link that you can click. That'll have a link to the slides and also to the survey.
Oh, great.
Hopefully
Okay.
all right. Yeah, that was weird.
Okay.
It was weird. It wasn't working.
Thanks, Danielle. So Danielle says she was able to do a survey earlier, so it worked for some people. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you for being here. I appreciate the work you're all doing. I mean,
Yeah, it's awesome.
so many people are doing so much awesome work these days. And just, as we said in the beginning, remember those keywords: grace, empathy, care, flexibility. That's for you all too, right? I mean, let's keep some balance in our lives too. Care for ourselves, care for our students, care for our families. And just try and strike a good balance right now as we all navigate these times. So, oh, great. So Rebecca was able to do it from the slideshow. Oh, good. So that worked as well. And so did Daneska. Thank you all for doing that. Awesome.
Awesome.
And Karen got the slides. Good.
Good.
We're good. Well, thanks so much for having me. It was awesome. This is a really neat group. It sounds like a really vibe. I joined your Facebook group today.
Oh,
So now
good.
that I know about you, I'm not a huge Facebooker, but this may give me a reason to be on Facebook more,
Good.
knowing that there's this awesome visual math community out here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Everyone is just like so kind to each other and so helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's awesome to know that it's there. So
yeah. So thank you for your work, for organizing all this community and this Facebook group and tonight's webinar. So thank you. And for people that are still there, my email is on the screen. You can email me if you have questions, because I know you might, Adam, okay, I tried it out and now I don't remember this, or I want to try this. There's my email. Feel free to email me. It's an Illinois address. My full-time job is I'm a methods instructor at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, Central Illinois. I work with a lot of pre-service teachers and in-service teachers. And Desmos, I'm really just a part-time facilitator, but really enjoy working with them. I can't say enough about them as a company, and the people behind the name are just amazing people, and an amazing company. So one thing to note too is that everything that's free on Desmos, they promise will remain free. So nothing that if they ever have to pay for things, and everything is free right now that you have access to, and anything that's free now will always be free.
Oh, that's
cool. Yep.
I'm adding your email to that that PDF. So I'm just seeing if I can. Oh, that was loud. Okay.
Great.
I can just drag it back in, and it'll update with your email address in case people need
Great.
questions.
Well, I think I'm going to head back out now, and it was a pleasure being with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Great. Well, I look forward to connecting in the future now that we know each other.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Bye.
All right. So I'm not sure how to end this.
Oh, I think I'll just push the stop. I think that's how it works.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.